What's going on YouTube? It's your favorite expat, Rocky, in real time, and today I'm coming at you with another useful video in which I'll detail my experience and everything I've learned about buying property here in Brazil, which I am in the process of doing. So it takes a while, you gotta figure out what you like, what area you want to live in, the price point and price range you're trying to get in at, and a bunch of other things. So it's a long process, and I'm in the beginning of that process. So I wanted to share with you what I've learned and basically how I'm going to systematically go about doing this, right? Now, this is in no way, shape, or form meant to substitute or be any sort of financial advice. At the end of the day, everyone's motives, decisions, and everything for buying property and investment is different. So please do your own due diligence after watching this video. This is not financial advice. Again, I'm going to say that. Do your own due diligence and research, and make sure you consult professionals here in Brazil. And I'll even tell you how to find those professionals towards the end of this video, right? But like I said, I'm just detailing my experiences and basically how I'm going about this process, right? And yeah, so that's just what this video is going to be about. Now, buying property in Brazil is a bit different than buying property in the United States. As a foreigner, you can buy property in Brazil. You have all the same rights that Brazilians do, right? So in this video, what I want to do is I want to kind of just, partition the video into different sections. I want to talk about first, how do you go about finding these properties? Number one. What's the average price of these properties? And this is going to depend on a lot, what you're looking for, the type of house you're looking for, the city you're in, what type of things you want in a house. Is it a new building? Is it an old building? Is it new construction? Is it a condo? Is it like a house? So what type of property are you going to buy? And then I'll detail all the documents you need and all the expenses to expect that come along with buying property here in Brazil. Right. So I plan on buying a condo, and ideally I want a 3.5 or 4-bedroom condo with 2 bathrooms. Right. So that's specifically what I'm looking for here in Salvador. Right. So how am I going to go about finding these properties? Now, there's several ways to actually find property here in Brazil. There's the archaic way, which I really don't recommend, but it's worth mentioning it because a lot of old people use this method, and I guess it's still kind of valuable. If people are still using it, it must still work for someone. But I mean, we're in the 21st century, so I'm not going to pay attention too much to this method, and you shouldn't either. Or I just recommend that people shouldn't, or I wouldn't, right? I'm not going to recommend anything. I'm just going to say I wouldn't, right? So if you walk around in neighborhoods like Baja, Copacabana, and Rio, or, just different like Centro and like, Orsay or Pinheiros in Sao Paulo, you'll see, and I'll put some pictures here, you'll see a sign in the window that says Venda-se, right? And a number under it. And that's just people advertising that they're selling their apartment. And they've probably got it on some other website as well. That's just an extra form. So you might just, take the number down and just, see what they got, look into it. They might just send you pictures of the unit and all that other stuff, or videos. But it's always a crapshoot because you can't see beforehand what you're getting, how many bedrooms, and all the other intricate details that will come, if you use some other method, like, using a website that has, property listings. So I wouldn't really recommend this, but I guess it's just an extra way for you to find property. So I mean, it's just an extra tool in your arsenal, whatever. So but like, use that as like last resort. It's not really effective or scalable. You can't really do that at mass. Like, you're gonna walk around every neighborhood and just take pictures of people's signs in their windows. It's not really effective, right? So the second method, right, which is another good method, is an online method, which is you're using sites like OLX, which is OLX, Zap Imóveis, you're using Quinto Andar, and you're using other sites like that, other real estate sites. There's, a bunch of them out here in Brazil, but those are the ones I use personally. I I don't use, there's others too. I've detailed this in my how to find apartments video. So there's other websites as well. There's another one. I can't remember the name of it, but I don't use that as much as the other three. So, and I mentioned that last one in the last video. And these are good ways of like finding listings, even sort of future listings. Like, they'll have like the 3D rendering of some of these apartments that aren't done yet, which I'll talk about later. So this is a good way of finding apartments. A lot of these apartments are going to be apartments that have already been built, which are going to be a little bit more expensive than what I'm about to do, the method I'm about to talk about, which is a lot better, because you're still going to be making monthly installments anyway, unless you're just buying a house up front. So and even if you are buying a house up front, it's still better to do the next way I'm going to talk about, right? You've got sites like that, like all these Zappy Moves, Quinto and Dar, those type of sites. You can use those sites to find properties. It's, effective way you can filter, find, properties in different cities and whatnot. And if you're not sure of what city you want to look in and you just want to browse, different cities in the country in general, then I'd suggest using one of those sites. But if you're absolutely sure what city you want to live in, let's say, or you want to buy property in, let's say it's Rio, let's say it's Sao Paulo, let's say it's Salvador, then the two methods that I'm using are using a real estate agent and going straight directly to the source, the construction company. And I'll tell you why these methods are way better than like using a website and whatever, which even on a website, you'll still probably encounter a real estate agent. Some people are just selling it, personally, or like, just alone, like they'll just list their house and whatnot. They won't like have a company try and sell it for them. And you see that a lot here. But the reason I like the real estate option or the real estate agent option is this, because you can be practically hands off, right? You can tell the real estate agent, you can call them and say, hey, Roberto, I need a balcony. I need this. I need access to a pool area. This is what I want in the building. This is what I want in a unit. I'm considering X, Y, and Z neighborhoods here in Salvador, X, Y, and Z neighborhoods here in Sao Paulo. Go find that for me, right? And he'll come back or she'll come back with a list of listings that kind of match your description, right? And this is how I pretty much, was looking for my apartment here in Salvador, because I was working, my wife was working. We really didn't have time to like search ourselves. So we just had like a real estate agent and we say, we want this, 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 and this. We want to be close to a beach. We want to be this, we want to be that, and then they gave us a list of options. And a lot of times, depending on what you're asking for and the availability, you might not find everything, but, if you have a good real estate agent, they should be able to find 85 to 90% of what you're asking for. Even in the States, if you watch shows like House Hunters, those couples that they go on a freaking house hunt, they, sometimes have to compromise on, things that they want. Oh, I wanted a bigger, porch deck, like you hear them say things like that. So even here, you're not going to anywhere really, like unless you're building a house from scratch, you're not going to get everything that you want most times, or, a lot of times. You might, but I'm just preparing you for what you might encounter. So there's that. Then there's going directly to the construction companies, right? And a lot of times these construction companies, when you see new buildings, and I'll attach videos here, you walk around these cities, there's no shortage in Rio, Sao Paulo, Fortaleza, Natal, all these cities, Salvador, like all of these cities, there's no shortage of property being built. So you walk around, you see on the scaffolding, you see all these, buildings being built, right? And on the side of the scaffolding, they'll have the contact number for the real estate company. The construction company, right? Because what happens is the construction companies, they will build the houses, advertise them, and, they'll hand it off to like real estate companies to try and fill for them once it's built, right? But before it's built, what they do is they advertise units, because like let's say they start, what's today? Today is 17th of June. So let's say they break ground on the project 17th of June, right? before even they put the first shovel in the ground, they have renderings of what they're gonna do with that space, what it's gonna look like when it's done, and all that other extra stuff, right? So a lot of times what they do, they have these booths that they set up near the construction site, or they'll just have like a sign and a number in which you can call. Like I said, I'm going to put the videos here on the screen. There's a bunch of them. You'll see them on billboards, or you'll actually see them as signs on the whatever they call it, the protective wall that, you know, that blocks off the construction site. You'll see a sign with the details about the unit, what the building name is going to be, the number, the contact, all that other stuff. So you contact them, and, you know, they'll try and entice you to buy it. Like they'll say last units or Ultimas Unidades. You'll see that on the front of there. They're, you know, trying to get people to, you know, snatch up the last units, or they might even just, you know, put that on as a scare tactic. Who knows? They might put that on as a scare tactic to try and get people to buy these units. But anyway, right? You'll see that. You get in touch with the construction company. And the reason I say this is better, buying new buildings or buying new units and new construction is better for two reasons. Number one, in old money neighborhoods, like, you know, in Rio, you've got Copacabana, Leblon, you've got Flamengo, you've got, you know, all these, you know, old money neighborhoods. Those buildings are old. The electrical is old in those buildings. The plumbing is old in those buildings. A lot of these buildings don't have other amenities. Like, they were built like 50 years ago, 40 years ago. Like, they don't have gyms. They don't have co-working space. Co-working wasn't even a thing like 30, 40 years ago. So they don't have all these new cool amenities that you might see in these newer buildings, right? And on top of that, the way the construction companies work here in Brazil is they use your money. Like, let's say you break, what I say, yeah, June 17th, you break ground, they break ground on construction today, right? They might not be done until June of 2025, right? So now they have all these renderings, and, you know, they've done the blah, blah, blah. They know what it's going to look like. They know what type of units. Oh, we're going to have 2-bedroom units, and we're going to have 3-bedroom units here, right? And then the penthouse unit is going to have 4 bedrooms, right? So they're going to have a different price for each one of these units, right? And I talk about Nascenci and Poenchi in the apartments, finding apartments video. And that's a crucial tip. That's a crucial tip when either renting or buying property here in Brazil, because it gets hot in some places and you need to be aware of that, right? So these companies, they try and pre-sell these units before they're even done, and they use that to finance the construction of the building, right? And they give you like a 20%, sometimes even 30% discount of what the price would be when it's finished construction. So that's a benefit. I mean, the downside of that is that you're gonna have to, like, once you sign on that dotted line, you give them the down payment, you're gonna have to be making monthly installments from then, even though the apartment isn't done yet, right? So you're gonna have to be paying rent in two places. Essentially, you're gonna be paying your mortgage for the property that's not done yet, and then you're gonna be paying rent for wherever you're living, whether it's inside or outside of Brazil. So that's the only downside really to it, that you have to wait for a while. Sometimes it's a year, sometimes a year and a half, but, you know, by that time you should have paid off most of the house, depending on your, you know, payment plan as a foreigner. Usually foreigners pay off within like 5-10 years or less or whatever. Sometimes even less than 5 years, like 3. I'm trying to aim for 3 years. So yeah. You usually get a chunk just taken off the price because you're paying well before the unit is even finished, right? So that's why I would recommend that, because whether you buy a house, however you buy a house, whether you got the cash and the bankroll to just buy everything up front, or you're going to be paying in installments, like, either way, with the construction company plan or going to a real estate agent, and usually they'll connect you with one of these, you know, these units being built, or these, you know, buildings being built and being erected. Like, you're still going to save a lot of money, whether it's 15, 20, 30%, because the building isn't done yet, and you're buying way ahead of time. So that's why I recommend going through either a construction company directly, or like some sort of real estate agent, because the real estate agents also even have, before anything is listed on OLX or Zap Movies or Quinto Andar, before anything is released on any of those sites, right? Before anything is released on any of those sites, they already have the inside scoop from construction companies and just being in the industry. So they've got a list of listings that haven't even been listed yet. Like, there's still like grass on the floor. They haven't even erected the construction site for this building yet, but they've got the 3D renderings and they've got the floor plan and they've got everything. So those are the two avenues. Of course, you're gonna have to pay them a little fee too, but they've got the connections with these construction companies. So I'd recommend going through, or like I'm going through real estate agent and finding construction companies. Actually, one of my good expat friends here in Salvador, he was walking in his neighborhood in Pituba and he walked by a new development, and they usually have, like I said, these booths where people sit outside and they kind of try and solicit people into looking at the units or blah blah blah. So he talked to one of those people, and long story short, he bought a house that way. Like, the construction company was, trying to get people to, be interested in the unit that they had there, that they were building there. And long story short, he's bought that house, and he's, paying the payments now. And I think it's going to be done middle of next year. Right. So, like I said, best ways: construction company, real estate agent for me. Right. And I feel like these will work for a lot of people as well. Right. Now, we talked about how to find these houses. Now, what is the average price of these houses? Right. And that really just depends. It depends on your city. Depends on what type of, property you're buying. Are you buying a home in like a gated community? Are you buying a condo unit? Like, what type of condo unit are you buying? Is it like super high-end luxury? Is it like average? Is it like, what is the, neighborhood is it in? Because if there's new development in Baja, it's going to be more expensive than new development in like Pituba or Costa Azul or Camino de Árvores or Grasa or one of these neighborhoods. And as far as Salvador is concerned, in terms of neighborhoods, like, the only neighborhoods I would buy property in is Victoria, Baja, Ongina, Costa Azul, Pituba, Rio Vermelho, Camino de Árvores, Graça, and maybe Garcia. Those are the only few neighborhoods, somewhere along the lines of Cidade Baixa, right? I'll probably buy a property in that, and that's what I told my real estate agent. Listen, I'm looking for some development, some new development there. I need 3 or 4 bedrooms. I want a balcony. And if you can find a penthouse suite that's on the Nascenci side, I want that. So I did mention Nascenci as well before I go into like the prices of these places, which kind of Nascenci and Poenchi has to do and deal with. Nascenci basically just means the sun. Your apartment is situated on the side where the sun rises and hits that apartment, right? So in the daytime, in the morning, it'll be a little warm, but it kind of cools off and even out like midday. It cools off and evens out like midday, so it's not that hot. Now, a Poenchi is when the sun is basically setting on the side of your apartment and it gets really, really, really blazing hot. And, that's something to be aware of when you're either buying or renting an apartment here in Brazil. Always ask them, hey, is this apartment, esse apartamento aqui é nascente ou poenche? You got to ask them that. Like, is this apartment nascente or poenche? Because, they'll, especially the gringo, they'll try and sell you the poenche because they don't got people trying to, rent the poenche. My homie, the one I just talked about, that just bought a penthouse suite that's being finished next year, he told me they showed him an Excel spreadsheet of the units that they have left, right? And because they divided it into Poenchi and Nascenci, he said most of the Nascenci side was bought. And the Poenchi side, they were still struggling to find, people to fill those units, right? And that's another negotiation tip, right? Because they'll try and sell you a Poenchi apartment, especially as a gringo. This is another thing I got to talk about as well. It's gonna, it ties into this price sort of conversation of a house, because they'll try and sell you a Poenchi side right? And your neighbors are not senshi, because usually in these buildings, right, they're like 2 units to a floor, right? Not all of them, but a lot of them have like 2 units to a floor, where one side, like the building is like divided in half, right? So on this floor, because this is how my building is, on one side, the whole side, me and my wife have one side of the building, on one side of the floor actually, and on the other side of the floor, our neighbors, right? So we would literally have one side, they would really have another side, right? So they'll try, and one side will be nasenchi, another side will be poenchi. They'll literally try and sell you a poenchi side for the same price as nasenchi side if you're not aware of, or if you don't ask those questions. So just be mindful of what people are paying, right? And there's a lot of blogs and other stuff like that are related to real estate where people have these conversations, and Reddit and all that other stuff. So I'd advise, doing research and looking into those communities and seeing what people are saying about units in different, or, buildings in different cities and real estate in different cities. But make sure you always ask that question, whether it's renting an apartment or buying one. Like, you got to know, because that can be a serious negotiation, a negotiation point, right? You don't want to not be aware of that, and then boom. You know what I mean? Another thing, right? Like I said, buying newer construction is way better than buying older buildings because of the plumbing, the wiring, and all that other stuff. And if you're going to buy an older building, like, I'm not totally knocking buying older construction. Make sure you use these tips of negotiation. Nasenchi poenchi. You're going to say, hey, yo, listen, I need to bring a plumber here. I need to be able to bring an electrician here to evaluate the state of these wires, these cables, these pipes, to see if I'm going to need to do any repairs, right? Like, you got to make sure the wiring, the plumbing is still good, because our landlord is trying to sell us this apartment right now, right? And it's a bit old. Like, it's, it's Baja, old money. We're like right on the beach. So it's like, it's this apartment, this building is a little old, right? So we're like, we're going to have to like replace the electrical in this building and replace probably some of the plumbing in the bathroom. So you're going to have to take off like, 100,000 reais from this price. Like, you can't sell it to us at this price. Like, I'm not going to buy it. Right. And without you knowing these things, then, you would like not make good decisions. And I've learned a lot of this stuff from my wife, because her parents, they own 8 properties, right? And she manages 4 of them, right? And 3 of them are in her name. So she's basically a landlord. She collects rents. She sends people to houses when things are broken or need some repairs or something like that. So she's been following her father in a business for some time, and her mother as well, who they're both very involved in it. So she knows a lot about this process. She knows a lot about these things. So she's taught me these things, and she is just basically the focal point, or the center of information for a lot of this process. I've learned on this on my own, asking other people, but she is basically the one that knows a lot about this process, because essentially her family has had real estate for more than 15 years. So yeah, and depending on the number of, bedrooms you want as well. 1 bedrooms, you can find that for under, 50,000 in a lot of cities. Sao Paulo, you can find a 1 bedroom, or, a studio unit for like 50,000, another, sometimes even like 35, 40,000, right? And you only got to really put down a 10% deposit, sometimes even less, especially if you like negotiate some sort of payment terms where you're paying a lot every month. Like, not a lot of Brazilians can, afford to pay like a $1,500, $2,000 monthly payment, right? But for us, coming from the first world, that's like our rent. That's rent in DC. That's rent in New York. That's rent in LA. And if you're living in one of these cities, you could pay for a house out somewhere in, 2 years or less, with paying that every month. So if you can put down a down payment of like, if you have a $40,000 property, that's $4,000. That's 2 months of rent. $50,000 property, that's $5,000. That's 2.5, maybe 3 months worth of rent, depending on where you live, right? So, and then you make these monthly payments, you'll be done paying it off in like 2 years for like a 1 bedroom, right? So it depends on what you want in your apartment. Do you want these amenities like a gym, co-working space? You want a building with all that stuff, or does that not care? Do you not care about that? Do you want a balcony? Do you want a building that has a pool? Do you want new marble countertops and all that other stuff, new tiling? So, but I'm going to give you a price range for each type of unit. Like, more or less that you'll see, depending on the city, whether it's Recife, whether it's Rio de Janeiro, whether it's Sao Paulo, whether it's Salvador. One bedroom, either a studio or one bedroom, you'll probably see anything from like 35,000 to 50,000, maybe more, depending on the quality, the location. This is just like that average range, this is the bell curve average. You're going to have outliers where you might see a one bedroom for 100,000. Of course, that's going to really just largely depend on the unit, the area. Like somewhere in Sao Paulo, like Moema, that's like a really high-end neighborhood. So you're probably not going to find a studio or one bedroom for like 40K in Moema, or 50K. It might be 60, 70, who knows? That's a really rich neighborhood. You see Porsches and everything. So just depends on the neighborhood, depends on a lot of things as well. So that's just like the bell curve average that I've seen and I've noticed from city to city, because I'm also looking at investment properties in Sao Paulo because it's like easy to do Airbnb there. A lot of people come there, and if you strategically use sites like RTy&x and all these other Airbnb tools that use the Airbnb API to like gather data about the average price point in certain areas, and the average length of stays that a lot of these Airbnb hosts are seeing in certain areas. If you use those type of tools to check out Airbnb data, you can use that to make informed decisions about where you buy property. So 2-bedroom unit, probably like $60,000-$70,000, equivalent in a lot of places. You can find that in Rio, you can find that in Sao Paulo, you can find that out here in Salvador, you can find that in Recife, right? 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom and up, or like 3 to 4 bedroom, because I'm not looking anything past that, and like anything past that, it's kind of rare, like to see 5 bedrooms in like a condo, and I'm talking mostly about condos, right? You'll probably see anywhere between like 100, 170. Depends on, like, there's a lot of things that, a lot of factors, like I said, that it depends on, but that's more or less the price. I'm looking probably in that 130 to 150 price range, right? So yeah, that's basically all for prices. Now let's go into documents. There's a process involved with like buying houses here. Let me just pull up some of these documents. Where is it out on my phone that we gathered? Anyway, here are the documents. Just got to go through it. All right, I sent you point sheet. All right. So you're going to have your escritura, which is basically your deed. And this is the deed of the house. And you're going to have this done by, like, you're going to have it signed and stamped by notary of public, a record of the sale. So they need to record the sale as just being final. And you need to, have that notarized. And there's prices that are associated, or there's costs that are associated with that. Then you need the transfer tax, which is like about 2% of the purchase price. Then you need to register the property, which is about 1.5%. And the escritura, which is the deed, which is like 1% depending on a lot of things. There's like capital gains tax as well. And that's like, I think it's anywhere between 10 and 15. I think like 15%. And that's paid at the time of sale, but you can defer if you like buy another property. Again, talk to a tax professional, because I learned all this from a tax accountant that I spoke out to here. So, and he was speaking a lot, and my wife knew a lot of these things because she's encountered these situations before. But again, like, it's some intricate stuff. Go hire a tax attorney, go hire an accountant, let them talk about that stuff in depth with you, right? And I'll show you a website where you can find that. Or find those professionals, excuse me. All right. So let's go into what other expenses you're gonna encounter or see. You're probably gonna pay a monthly condo tax, or if you're in a gated community, some sort of gated community tax. And basically, this little fee is to help maintain the amenities of the building. So if you have a pool, you have like garage spaces, you have a gym, you have a bunch of other stuff. This fee goes to maintaining all of those amenities that are available to you in the building. And I've seen anything from the equivalent of like $30 to like $100. It just depends on the building. Again, a lot of these things are dependent on where you're buying the property. Because new construction, definitely they'll try and throw all these things like co-working spaces, bike racks, ground floor shopping. They'll throw a bunch of stuff in there. So you might see a condo tax or building tax that's on the higher end, right? Then you have IPTU, which is IPTU, and this is the Imposto Predial y Territorio Urbano, and this is anywhere between like 0.8 to like 1.75% of the cost or the price of the property that you've bought. Again, this is going to depend on the region, the city, the municipality, a lot of things. So it just depends on the region and also the neighborhood you're in and all that other stuff. I think there's also the Cartório de Registro de Imóveis, and you got to have a signature of public contract as well. So you got to take the deed, and you got to get a payment receipt you got to get a payment receipt, and you got to take it to the notary. The notary looks at it, looks over it, and signs it, right? And that's pretty much some of the things that you're going to have to do and deal with. There's a little bit of other paperwork involved. Like if you used a real estate agent, they might have like some sort of finder's fee for like connecting you with that construction company or with that building unit. So that fee might be like 2% ish or whatever. It just really depends on the company and the contract you sign. And a lot of these things are negotiable. So don't take these as hard and fast rules. Like a lot of these things are just very negotiable. And then also in terms of like down payment, because I don't really think I talked about it. But if I didn't, I'll discuss it again. Down payments can be anywhere between 7-10%. Again, you can have a lower down payment than that. I've seen lower than 7%. And that was because the monthly installments were going to be a little bit higher and the payment terms were less than 5 years. So it really just depends on how you negotiate, and what your initial investment is going to be and what your monthly investment is going to be. So it all really just depends. But as a safe rule of thumb, I'm going to put at least 10 to 15% down, maybe 20, depending on the unit. If I really, really, really like the unit, I'm going to put 20, 25, just so I can negotiate, a good monthly payment. And have a lower purchasing price because there's going to be other fees associated with it. So the more money you can give them now, the better you can negotiate. So like if they tell you like the purchase price is like $150,000, right? And then you put like $40,000 down and say, hey, I want to buy this unit at like 130 total, or I'll walk, right? Or I'll find something else. They might be willing to work with you. They will definitely take that money off that purchase price if you put more down, because you're giving more money to them liquid right now, versus over in installments. And they need, like I said, these construction companies, they fund their projects by using the down payments and the money that people are paying them monthly for the units that they're going to be finished in the future. So the more money you can give them now, the better position you'll be to negotiate. So, that's pretty much it. That's pretty much it for this video, yo. I've been rambling and talking a lot, and I'll probably make another follow-up video in 6 months, just to let you guys know where I am in the process and like what other things that you should be aware of and look for while buying property in Brazil. The next video I'm probably gonna make is furnishing a Brazilian apartment or something along those lines. So, yeah, that's it for this video. I hope you found it useful and valuable. And until next time, my real ones, next time. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Real quick, I'm cutting this in and slicing this in the video because I realized in post-production I did not talk about that resource where you can find professionals. And that name of that site is going to be called getninjas.com.br. I put it here on the screen, and I'll put a screenshot here as well. And basically you can go in there and you can search for lawyers who are very knowledgeable about tax and finances. And then you can also search for accountants. So when you're in that site, you're going to search for contador for accountants, and for lawyers, you're going to search advogados. I'll put it here on the screen. I'll put it in the description as well. All the sites for finding real estate and everything, I'll put it in the description. So yeah, that's basically it. Thanks.